Every League of Legends player knows the feeling of spending seemingly all day thinking about this game. You're in the middle of class and you're thinking about how you could have played that scenario differently. You're in the middle of walking back home and you're thinking about that time where you lost when you were ahead and that really stings you again. You're in the middle of taking a shit and you can't help but wonder about all the new changes that Uncle Freak has promised us and how that's going to screw up your client for this upcoming patch. See, League of Legends is so vast and complicated that most dedicated players are pretty much forced into thinking about the game extensively. For those of us that really like to analyze things and learn the inner workings of a particular pursuit, there's just so many combos, interactions, and permutations that are available that you can go down a rabbit hole of mental masturbation as you try to figure out all the truths that exist within this game. It took me a while to realize this about League, but this kind of compulsion to be constantly hung up on League, even when you're not playing it, is an extremely dangerous sign. It fosters obsessive thinking patterns that can lead to addictive behavior, which can in turn obviously ruin your life. Because your literal brain is too focused on decoding virtual reality instead of devoting its time and resources into sorting out your real life instead. When I put it like that, it takes on a more heinous shape, doesn't it? So in this video, we'll explore the second way that Riot keeps you addicted to League by trapping you with its vastly complex depth of knowledge and its billions of nuanced champion interactions. If you guys missed the first video on this series, do yourself a favor and click on the top right. It sets the baseline for what we're going to cover going forward in this series and how we're going to break free of these addictive elements so we can enjoy the game that we love without ruining our lives in the process. My name is Raybees and I help people improve their relationship with League of Legends. Whether it's finding new ways to climb into an elo you desperately want to get into, or reducing the addictive power that this game can have over your life, my content is the type of stuff that I wish I would have seen when I first started playing games. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in, don't forget to do the usual YouTube stuff and like and subscribe. Now, League of Legends is an extremely complicated game. I have a few friends that just started playing the game in the last 1 to 3 years, and it always cracks me up how they have no idea what most champions or even items do. As veteran League of Legends players, it's easy to become ignorant to just how much we know about this game from years of not only playing it, but also keeping up with the shoulder content. There's just so much implied knowledge that it can genuinely take most casual gamers quite a long time before they even become situated with the basics of the game. Like I've mentioned in part 1 of the series, this complexity is one of Riot's main levers to force people into an unhealthy relationship with the game. It's honestly lifelike how complex the game is. With its near infinite amount of interactions and scenarios that are possible, there's always something to be learned every time you load into Summoner's Rift. This can also mean, however, that for most people that are interested in getting better at the game, whether it's to simply play with friends and not be deadweight or to climb the ladder, there's literally an infinite number of things you can learn. And that's the catch. Because it's virtually impossible to learn everything about the game, you start to dedicate more and more time into understanding the game until it crowds out the rest of the things in your life that you should be focused on. And it goes beyond just playing it. How many times have you watched a guide on how to play a certain champ? How many times have you searched up for the most effective ways to climb? How many times have you looked up a specific interaction within the game, trying to understand 1 out of a billion different interactions? I would know because not only did I search this type of stuff in the past, but this channel was literally built to serve that kind of audience. Basically, you're not allowed to leave the game even when you're not playing it. Once you expose yourself to the rabbit hole that is League of Legends content, you can stay stuck in it for a very long time. This exposes you to the game even when you're not exposed to it, creating yearning and or relapses when you're not around it or when you should be doing something else. And this kind of perpetual exposure is something you should be very wary of. By constantly thinking about the game, you devote so much time away from your other goals in life. Your mental space becomes wholly preoccupied by all the fun little tricks you can pull or the specific interactions you can't wait to try out that you literally don't have the mind space to think about anything else in your life. This is extremely dangerous since League is a much more enjoyable pursuit than your average day-to-day goals. So your brain has an incentive to think about League not only because it's so vast and complex, but it's also way more fun than real life. Answer me this. Would you rather spend time thinking about how you're going to prep for that finals or how you should have kited out that team fight on your favorite AD carry? What would your brain rather think about? Obviously the more fun and stimulating alternative, right? Because of this, it can be very hard to escape League even when you're not actively playing it. Every time you try to do something else, you're passively reminded by how much fun you're not having and how much more fun it would be to play League instead of doing whatever bullshit you're trying to do instead. The vast sea of information plus the extremely stimulating fun time you'll have learning all this information makes for a deadly addiction combo as you try to justify the time spent playing and think about the game as a sort of fruitful endeavor when we all know that's not really the case. Just because it's hard and complex and it's fun doesn't really mean it's fulfilling or rewarding in the long term. So now that we know this kind of information, what do we do instead? I have 3 solutions for you guys. You can take one or a combination of any depending on what speaks out to you the most. First and foremost is that you have to understand that it's okay not to know everything about this game. I think this is the main problem problem and or misconception that people have, and it's that they try to learn everything about this damn game. You have to remember that the issue we're talking about doesn't really affect every League player. It's mostly the overthinkers and Reddit analysts that develop this problem simply because they're trying to do the impossible and trying to know too much all at once. There's a certain type of nerd that likes to discover the ins and out of a particular thing and gets really excited at the prospect of learning new things, almost like a scientist. While this trait is commendable, understand that it'll royally fuck you up in the context of League of Legends addiction. You'll become hyperfixated on discovering all there is to know that you simply overwhelm your mental with this pursuit, both in and out of the game. And this can snowball into a very heavy addiction where the only thing you derive pleasure from is the mental masturbation of thinking about the game. Instead, make peace with the fact that even experts like Kedro and Dom don't really know everything about the game, and they're constantly learning things as they go on, and they have more exposure to a patch and so on and so forth. The fact that this game changes on a fortnightly basis makes learning it virtually impossible, guys. It's almost like these constant changes are supposed to keep you ignorant to the game's optimizations as you rediscover the game again and again. This is part of Riot's ploy. Like, they want to change the game every so often to make sure the optimal strategies and the metas get changed, so it becomes harder to keep up with the game. You constantly have to spend more and more and more time learning the game, and that's part of how Riot keeps you looped into League in the first place. Let go of this autistic desire to know everything and simply immerse yourself in the game instead. And speaking of immersion, the second tip I have for people struggling with overthinking about League is understanding that League is mostly an intuition-based game. Now, there's been so many times where I take a break from the game simply because life gets in the way, and I come back in a few days, weeks, or even months, and I find that I completely obliterate the competition. It's always befuddled me because as someone who's had a very rigid training system and teaches that system on this channel, there was something simply about playing the game without really overthinking it that seems so effective. Now, the reason why I think this is because there's so much bullshit happening. In today's world of social media and constant stream of information, we as a society are becoming much more conditioned to needing information in order to do something. Want to go to the gym? You need to watch a bunch of science-based influencers yap about what exercises are best for you. You want to go on a trip? You need to watch a bunch of articles and guides on what the quote-unquote best spots are at this time of the year. Everything everywhere is being optimized through social media. Shit, even this fucking channel was built off of optimizing the League climb for talentless people like me. However, as good as this information is, we must not become too fixated on optimization. Simply playing the damn game and letting your instincts take over is just as effective, if not even more effective, as spending hours and hours watching educational content and running through the math on perfect builds. This comes back to the overthinking, guys, in the sense that there is so much power in just simply doing the thing instead of just like constantly ruminating about it and thinking you're some sort of genius that can see all the different avenues and see all the different pathways. When at the end of the day, you're just like stuck on your ass, just thinking about shit instead of actually doing it. Because even overthinking and ruminating about certain things doesn't necessarily guarantee you're going to get it right on the first time. Because unlike a test or even a chess game, League is extremely fast-paced, where your ability to make decisions are being tested every single half a second. You don't have time to sit and think about the best ways to play out each game state. You simply have to move on instinct. Instead of ruminating on the perfect way to play the game, simply just expressing yourself in the game is not only healthier, but it also prevents you from wasting so much of your time and mind space thinking about worthless little scenarios that push you closer and closer to the edge of addiction. The final tip I have for you guys is to simply get hyped and interested about other things in life. Now, I saved this tip for last because it's the hardest and it'll take the longest to achieve, especially for people that already play a shit ton of League. Remember what I said about League being more fun than anything else in your life? If this is the case, it'll be very hard for you to get control over League of Legends. The stimulation and fun will be too high for you to do much of anything, and you'll keep relapsing over and over and over again. Oftentimes, the stimuli we get from League is so high that it takes over our receptors and becomes our only source of joy. A quick fix for this is to find other things in life to feel good about. By being happy about other things, you naturally start to think about those things instead, therefore reducing the amount of time you spend thinking about League. Now look, if you're in a position where you're worrying about gaming addiction in the first place, I'd say you have it pretty good. A roof over your head, enough food on the table, and enough of your needs taken care of where you can actually be in danger of losing yourself to a fucking video game. Learn to appreciate the good things that are happening in your life and come to terms with the fact that it can be much worse if things weren't even a little bit differently. If League is the only thing that makes you happy, it'll be very easy to get addicted to it and spend the rest of your life and chasing diminishing returns of the high that it once gave you. Focus on other things and let League take a backseat in your life for a while. It'll allow your dopamine receptors to recalibrate and return to normalcy. So when you do interface with the game again, you'll be having a much more fun experience. Let's run through what we've learned in this video. Number 1. League can cause addiction through an invasive process into your mind, where the game's fun and complexity seduces your brain into thinking about it repeatedly, creating behavioral patterns that resemble and can snowball into addiction. If not corrected properly, League of Legends will start to crowd out other areas of your life, and soon your brain will only be thinking about League. Fixes for this include being okay with being ignorant about the game, understanding League is less about thinking and more about doing, and deriving pleasure from other areas of life. Now that you're aware of this, you should be better equipped to playing the game and enjoying it without becoming too fixated on solving all of its mysteries. If you guys missed the first episode of this series, I'll leave it here so you can give it a watch. I've also included my series on understanding talent in League of Legends, so if you want to learn more about the neurological processes that make someone good at a video game, give it a watch also. That's it from me, guys. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.